Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer, your perpetually reluctant prophet. Today's topic is mass formation psychosis and the Canadian public. I have noted that conservatives most often point out the contradictions in leftist agendas that have virtually captured the collective unconscious of many today. This is humorous, since the entire premise of postmodernism and cultural Marxism is based on what Dr. Leon Festinger identified as cognitive dissonance. Leftist belief systems depend upon holding mutually exclusive ideas simultaneously while ignoring the contradictions. This is why it is necessary for the left to capture society via emotions rather than by reason. Dr. Festinger's experiments in cognitive dissonance actually demonstrated that a mountain of evidence will only cause the ideologically possessed to double down on their delusional ideation. So what happens when the collective unconscious of society accepts cognitive dissonance and lies to replace reality? When a critical mass becomes totally captured by their emotions, or in my case, by a chihuahua playing with his toys. Why don't you go see Mommy? Eh? You're making a racket. Oh my goodness. Come here. Show the audience. Come here. Come. Don't you want people to see you? You're crazy. Oh, where was I? When a critical mass becomes totally captured by their emotions, what happens? Chaos. Societies unravel when people prioritize feelings over facts. Mass delusion creeps in think echo chambers where lies spread like wildfire because they feel good. History shows it. Propaganda, witch hunts, or mob rule. Economies tank, laws get ignored, and trust collapses. I've never seen Canada in a situation where virtually, many whom I know, either utterly mistrust their government or choose to ignore the blatant contradictions between the government's policies and the policy's outcomes. But eventually something snaps. Someone will snap. And either it's a revolution or a slow rot into stagnation, which we're seeing right now. Emotions cannot sustain reality long term. They're too fickle. Dr. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and psychologist who founded the School of Analytical Psychology. This is what he had to say about this phenomenon. Jung saw the collective unconscious as humanity's shared psychic basement with lies, fears, and archetypes bubbling up. If society leans into cognitive dissonance, he'd say we're letting the shadow self archetypes like the trickster or the tyrant take over. In The Undiscovered Self, he warned that ignoring reality for emotional myths leads to mass psychosis, where groups project inner demons onto outsiders, fueling fanaticism. He'd call it possession by archetypes, where people aren't rational, rather they're vessels for collective delusions. Truth gets buried, and the psyche splinters until a reckoning forces integration or collapse. And then I post a photograph by Vice President J.D. Vance of something he posted, which was reposted by Canada Proud, to X, where Canada Proud states, U.S. President J.D. Vance takes to X to slam Canadian immigration insanity and blames Canada's elected officials for our country's problems. Your stagnating living standards have nothing to do with Donald Trump or whatever bogeyman the CBC tells you to blame. So, J.D. Vance posted 2X on November the 21st. While I'm sure the causes are complicated, no nation has leaned more into diversity as our strength. We don't need a melting pot. We have a salad bowl, immigration insanity, than Canada. It has the highest foreign-born share of the population in the entire G7, and its living standards have stagnated. In response, or rather in agreement with this, nevertheless posted 5 days earlier by Michael A. Ararat, what is happening in Canada will be studied by many historians and economists as the prime example of self-destruction of an otherwise prosperous nation after blindly following left ideology. And I post the graph that compares Great Britain and the U.S. and Canada and our GDP per person. And of course, the U.S. is shooting up, while Canada is utterly stagnating. You'll need, if you want to see these charts and graphs and photographs, you'll need to go to the blog. I always link the blog in the video. So if you look at the notes on the video, you can open the blog and read everything I'm reading to you now for yourself. So next, written by Carl Harrison in response to J.D. Vance post on X, at Carl D. Harrison. Quoting Mr. Harrison, I think the challenge here is that only an activist and sometimes extreme minority of Canadians have leaned into the flawed ideologies you have rightly highlighted. Unlike your country, or to a great extent the UK, Canadians in general are not naturally argumentative or confrontational, unless their name is Bill Reimer. Passive-aggressive, but that is a poor defense. Passive-aggressive maybe, but that is a poor defense against what we see going on here. Canada has suffered no internal turmoil in living memory, and our Constitution is weak, a legal swamp, and not built to withstand a charlatan which arrived in the form of Justin Trudeau and his coterie of vile kleptocrats. Arguably, our Constitution was substantially designed by charlatans in the form of Trudeau Sr. and Jean Chrétien. Whilst the U.S. Constitution was authored by smart and cunning men with a view to withstanding subsequently the malign intentions of different but also smart and cunning men, then Canada has nothing of the sort. Section 1 of our grandiosely named Charter of Rights and Freedoms provides a reckless and cynical government with the abilities to suppress any right or freedom later described in subsequent sections. Canada would, like Australia and New Zealand, be a fruitful place for horrible globalist players to try out their social experiments with little visible pushback. Most Canadians consider satire, debate, and protest to be rude and uncivil, whereas you and I would consider them the bedrock of a healthy democracy. We have state-controlled media, zero satire, or ridicule of the managerial class, and right now the country seems comfortable with giving away its land and rights to micro-dependencies of indigenous ethnic clans who do not even consider themselves to be Canadian. Nothing should define the imminent collapse of statehood more than such an irresponsible action as that. It would not surprise you, I guess, to find out that UNDRIP, which was largely authored by activists in Canada, and so it follows that the only places in the world that have codified that aberrant treaty into law are British Columbia and the federal government in Ottawa. Canada is being subjected across the board through UNDRIP-inspired land grabs to outrageously irresponsible immigration through the tragedies that emerge daily from activist jurists to the inactivity or perhaps complicity of our police in relation to international crime syndicates, to the kleptocratic kakistocracy in Ottawa under the puppet leadership of Mark Carney, man who failed upwards all of his life, to a vile experiment which can only end in failure, as similar elsewhere has done before. It's appropriate in a perverse way that Canada is famous for people deciding to go over Niagara Falls in barrels, notwithstanding that every person to have done so has died, although that's untrue. Some did survive. But nevertheless, that's what this chap has stated. The primary task of a federal government are to maintain a secure border and to military protected citizens. The contrast between the U.S. and Canada on those two issues are of fundamental and existential importance has never been sharper, as your administration takes the right steps and ours does not. There is so much work to do, but rest assured that many Canadians, and likely a silent majority, want to properly restore our relationship with our wonderful, direct, argumentative, colorful, entrepreneurial, and welcoming brothers and sisters to the South. And I second Mr. Harrison's remarks. I lived and worked in the States and made many wonderful friends there. And I found them to be very welcoming and very open. And they provided me with an excellent living and wonderful accommodations during my 9-month stay, getting an electrostatic painting company that coated parts with the military, ISO certified. So that was posted on November the 21st, 2025 by Mr. Harrison. And now here's a comment from Ava Vlar that she stated at the CPAC Hungary conference on July the 6th, 2025, which she posted on Instagram. I provide the link at the end. She said, "Democracy is dead, but the illusion of it is kept alive. Our regime says that to maintain peace in Europe. We need to go to war with Russia. To protect democracy, we have to ban right-wing parties. And to protect freedom of speech, we have to censor disinformation. Just like in Orwell's 1984. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength." Watch her impassioned defense of the Christian West at the following link, and I provide you with that link. So my conclusions. Cultural insanity is endemic throughout the West, particularly in Canada. This madness involves cultural replacement that will literally destroy the very foundations of Western identity, namely Christianity. Since the cultural Marxists who are responsible for our cultural suicide believe, as Marx did, that religion is the opiate of the people, they are responsible for selling the greatest lie to the West that it has ever bought, namely, that our liberal democracies have outgrown their need for Christ. This is nothing short of mass formation psychosis, which has ideologically captured sufficient numbers to put an end to the greatest societies which have ever existed. We forget that slavery is still openly practiced in the Muslim world. Incompatible ideologies and the people who embrace them will be our demise if we refuse to act, and act decisively now. If we don't do anything now, our future will be assured, because these people literally state in their own literature that's what they intend to do. They intend to destroy the West. They intend to put an end to free market capitalism, to individual liberty, to personal rights and freedoms and autonomy, and first and foremost, the belief that Christ alone is King. Every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Our leaders cannot be considered to be above the law, and certainly not above God's law. These are things to think and pray about on this November the 24th. God bless you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.